Calls keep rising to the sky as Cameroonians, including Kawala, Barrister Keremuna and Nuran Fotser, urge authorities to proclaim the legitimate winner of the October 12, 2025 presidential elections, warning that manipulation will jeopardize the people's will. Meanwhile, University Professor Jean-Claude Abayono condemns what he qualifies as widespread fraud and calls for nationwide protest to uphold the people's voice. That's our lone major story tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 6 p.m. edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for staying with us. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. Begin this newscast right here in the city of Douala, where an abandoned drainage construction project has paralyzed economic and social activities in the Mabanda neighborhood of Bonaberi in the Douala 4 municipality. Recounting their ordeal, local inhabitants say that the project was initiated by municipal officials who have not communicated the reasons for the abandonment. More with Fomi Armstrong Sander.
This is the state of the road linking the main market to the government high school Mabanda in Bonaberi in the Douala 4 municipality. Local inhabitants say that the chaotic and pathetic situation stems from a drainage construction project abandoned by municipal officials for over 1 month today. The project was launched at the beginning of back to school, but our joy quickly died out when works could not continue beyond 2 weeks.
On a commencé vers le marché là, on est arrivé quelque part là, on a arrêté. On ne sait même pas quand ils vont venir commencer le travail.
An abandonment that has paralyzed an entire neighborhood with economic and social activities stagnating. Local inhabitants express frustrations.
On transportait les gens pour amener aux 4 étages là. Maintenant on ne peut pas.
They are either compelled to trek into the dirty and muddy waters or trek on longer distances out of the neighborhood. School kids in the neighborhood say that they either arrive late to school or pay higher to get through longer distances. Teachers and officials of the government high school Mabanda have heartbreaking experiences on the bad stretch.
Parce que des collègues arrivent, tombent dans l'eau pour se relever, d'autres même repartent à la maison.
Added to the deplorable state of the road is the alarming poor waste disposal in the neighborhood. Heaps of waste in Mabanda line up the street, blocking not only circulation and drainage patterns, but also posing as a veritable threat to the health of the local inhabitants.
Fomi Armstrong Sander reporting there. A campaign to combat school violence and empower Cameroonian youth has been launched in Douala, aiming to create a safe and supportive learning environment. The initiative seeks to address the physical and psychological violence, bullying, and also intimidation that many students currently face. And this campaign aims to foster a generation of confident and resilient leaders for tomorrow. Siri Chakutio reports.
The phenomenon of violence in school milieu has become recurrent in Cameroonian schools. It is socially perceived as a threat to academic and public order. For some, this is due to a poor family background. What explains the violence in the school milieu can all come from the family. The risk factors exist, such as children who live in a monoparental home, children themselves who experience violence or who observe how violence is done within the family, the father beating the mother, and when the child arrives at school, the child can reproduce this pattern to express his suffering. For experts, this phenomenon is on the rise because youth generally deviate from education and become interested in other violent activities. A student who is constantly violent will not necessarily have time to study. They will have other interests, which could be drugs or being constantly online on social media or even being interested in activities that are not beneficial to them. To break this, an awareness campaign has been launched to combat violence and early pregnancy in schools. Its objective is to encourage these young people to adopt more responsible behaviors in the society.
L'objectif de cette campagne de sensibilisation, c'est d'avoir...
The objective of this campaign is to achieve a significant reduction of violence in schools, because we are observing an increase in violence, and when we compare statistics with previous years, it clearly shows that over the time, violence worsens, thus the urgence of awareness campaigns.
Campagne de sensibilisation en milieu scolaire.
This campaign will take place from October 22nd, 2025 to the 4th of March 2026 in several schools here in Douala. Experts also call on parents to get involved so as to ensure the success of this joint initiative so that youths of today become leaders of tomorrow.
And in health, oncologists and health professionals are raising awareness about the importance of early detection of breast cancer among young women to reduce the mortality rate, which remains high in Cameroon. On the occasion of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, new techniques and strategies are being implemented in Cameroon to curb the disease. This year, oncologists from the Cameroon Oncology Center are collaborating with schools through sensitization campaigns to address the prevalence of breast cancer among young women in the country. Ese Lucilengu was present and now compiled this report.
Breast cancer is alarmingly becoming more common among women in Cameroon, with approximately 4,000 new cases reported each year. This disease, caused by genetic mutations in the breast cells leading to uncontrolled growth, is largely attributed to lack of awareness and low screening rate among women. In recognition of the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, health experts including oncologists are working together with schools to raise awareness through sensitization campaigns like these organized by the Cameroon Oncology Center in Bonaberi, Douala 4.
Please, madam, I wish to ask if it's normal for a woman to see her period for 2 days.
The sensitization campaign enabled students to interact with health professionals, emphasizing the importance of understanding the risk factors and taking proactive steps to reduce breast cancer.
So the objective, the reason why we decided to move this to start sensitization in schools is firstly because we've noticed recently the prevalence of breast cancer, the incidence of breast cancer is getting high amongst the younger population than it was before. So this generally is prompting us to do more and more sensitization in the young ones.
In the course of the sensitization campaign, the students were taught on how to self-examine themselves.
You then use your right hand. Your right hand becomes your doctor. Okay? You use 4 fingers. You use the middle part of your 4 fingers, not the tip, the middle. And you will use that to palpate your breast. When you do this, you check. As I lifted my hands, is there any dimple that formed? Did the shape become funny? Did I feel any?
Fostering awareness and education about breast cancer is vital for early detection and prevention, empowering young women to take charge of their health and well-being.
Now we talk something else. As Cameroonians eagerly await the official results of the October 12 presidential election, prominent figures are urging the government to respect the people's will. Reacting to their social media pages, notable personalities like Nuran Foster, Edith Kabangwala, and Akere Muna have called for the government to prioritize the democratic process and ensure a peaceful transition. Malaglory put together their reactions in this report.
Barrister Kere Muna, former presidential candidate and ally of Bello Buba Maigari, had set an example of leadership by aligning with others to call on the regime to listen to the cry of the people who vote massively on October 12th. In his Facebook handle, the prominent lawyer compares Cameroon to Senegal, whose true democracy heed the voice of the people. He calls on President Paul Biya to act like Abdou Diouf and recognize the will of Cameroonians who stood united regardless of tribe, religion or party, and made their voice heard. While Nuran Foster, Member of Parliament, urged Elekam to stay away from pressure exerted on them by the ruling CPDM party and for once play their role, which is that of transparency, truth and integrity. Edith Kawala, politician, civil society activist and leader of citizen movement Stand Up for Cameroon, in a video circulating on social media, warns against violence in the country, while congratulating Cameroonians for exercising their civic duty and protecting their votes.
Par féliciter tous les Camerounaises et Camerounais qui ont voté et qui en ce moment sont en train d'agir pour défendre leur vote.
She highlights the fact that the Constitution of Cameroon guarantees a free and fair elections and those must be respected.
La Constitution du Cameroun nous garantit des élections libres et transparentes.
She further reminds the population that it is their right to defend their votes.
Il est alors l'heure que nous nous levons toutes et tous pour rejoindre la lutte pour ce droit qui nous est garanti.
However, Kawala cautioned the citizen against excesses such as the destruction of their properties while protesting.
Still on today's segment of the Race to A to D, Cameroon's Communication Minister René Manuel Sadi has condemned the violation of electoral laws during the presidential election, urging stakeholders to respect the process. In a statement released on October 15, Sadi reviewed the applicable electoral rules and called for calm. Sidi Chakutio files in the details.
Days after the presidential elections of October 12, 2025, the Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson René Emmanuel Sadi issued a press release to recall the legal framework governing the proclamation of electoral results in Cameroon. In this text, René Emmanuel Sadi recalled that the conduct and proclamation of elections in Cameroon are governed by the law of April 19, 2012 on the Electoral Code, amended and supplemented by the laws of December 21, 2012. And April 25, 2019. He emphasizes on Article 137 of the Electoral Code, which says that the Constitutional Council shall decide and proclaim the results of the presidential election within a maximum period of 15 days from the date of closing of the poll. But before this step, he explains, the process follows a precise path. Local commissions have 48 hours to submit their minutes to the departmental supervisory commissions. These commissions then have 72 hours to send their work to the National Commission for the General Counting of Votes, which carries out the general count within 5 days and submits its report to the Constitutional Council for the final proclamation. According to him, any action contrary to this process constitutes a serious violation of the regulations in force in Cameroon with all the legal consequences. This clarification from the government comes as several political actors have publicly commented or announced unofficial results. On October 14th, Issa Chiroma Bakari, presidential candidate under the banner of the Cameroon National Salvation Front, declared himself the winner of the election just 48 hours after the vote, while official results are expected by Cameroonians.
And we stay in politics as Professor Jean-Calvin Abaoyono breaks his silence. In a frank talk, the university professor denounces an institutionalized fraud ritual which he claims disfigured the October 12 presidential election. The university don accuses the outgoing government of falsifying the return reports to subvert the popular will and calls for national uprising to defend the truth of the ballot box. Babila Jonathan with the details.
University don Professor Jean-Calvin Abaoyono qualifies President Paul Biya's 4-decade leadership as catastrophic governance that led to the rejection of the incumbent by the people last October 12. A rejection, he says, was crowned by the choice of Issa Chiroma Bakari, resulting to what has been described as a massive victory for the candidate of the Cameroon National Salvation Front. Professor Abaoyono decries what he calls fraudulent electoral maneuvers to overturn Issa Chiroma Bakari's victory in a bid to maintain President Paul Biya in power. He adds that the electoral fraud mechanism had been put in place prior to the election and is now being implemented with the use of intimidation, force and even violence in some situations of resistance by some stakeholders. Professor Abao ENOAKU calls for a national reawakening to stop the effort to thwart the people's will.
Now we talk sports. The indomitable Lions of Cameroon are now aware of their next opponents as their quest for the FIFA World Cup 2026 continues. The Lions, who failed to secure a direct qualification ticket, were forced to pass through the CAF playoffs before the intercontinental playoffs. The African playoffs will come in Morocco next November 13, 2025. The following reports, Magic Gabriel says North Africa for now has the greatest number of countries to represent Africa in America, Mexico and Canada next year. His report.
With Africans' 9 automatic qualification spots now filled, attention turns to the playoffs, a final chance for one more African team to reach the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The 4 best runners-up, Gabon, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Cameroon and Nigeria, will be tussling for the spot next month in Morocco. The indomitable Lions, who missed out on a direct qualification, will now find their way to the FIFA World Cup against the Democratic Republic of Congo in a one-legged match in one of the semi-finals of the playoffs tournament. A win for the indomitable Lions will qualify them for the final of the playoffs, where they will meet either the Super Eagles of Nigeria or Gabon, who will meet in the other semi-final game. The winner of the final from a CAF will then qualify for the intercontinental playoffs, which will involve other countries. With the 4 best second teams fighting for a spot to the World Cup, 9 countries are already sure of the tournament. Amongst them, 4 North African teams, 4 West African teams, and a team from the southern parts of Africa, Tunisia and Morocco, will be at their 7th adventure in the history of a FIFA World Cup. They are the most capped teams amongst the 9 that pick up direct qualifications. Morocco, who finished 4th in the 2022 edition in Qatar, were the first to qualify. Ghana and Algeria are at their 5th appearance at the FIFA World Cup, while Egypt, South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal are in their 4th experience at the FIFA World Cup. The history makers at the FIFA World Cup is the little island nation of Cabo Verde, who against all odds qualified from Group D at the detriment of Cameroon. It is the first time Cabo Verde will be playing in the FIFA World Cup. Tunisia finished the qualifiers as one of the best sides. In 10 matches played, they conceded no goal.
And still in sports, the 9th edition of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup kicks off today in Morocco. Cameroon's Baby Lionesses will get into the competition on Saturday as they will lock horns with the Netherlands. Meanwhile, Colombe of the Njan Lobo will challenge MC of Algiers in the first leg game of the CAF Champions League this weekend. Details once more with our sportsman, Magic Gabriel.
Boosted by their victory on away ground to ASC Giraffe of Senegal in the first round preliminary encounter of the CAF Champions League, Colombe of Njan Lobo are more than prepared for their next visitors, Mouloudia Club of Algiers, Algeria, in the next stage of the CAF Champions League. For the past weeks, the boys of coach Richard Towa have been intensifying their preparations to face their Algerian opponents, who are not to be taken for granted. While training, the boys of coach Richard Towa also had time to remove stress by dancing. If League One of Cameroon is still to start, to give the steam to the boys of the South, that of Algeria is already 7 days old, with the opponents of Colombe of Njan Lobo on spot number 5 with 10 points after 4 matches played. The Algerian side that is already in Yaoundé since midweek say they are determined to get the necessary results before the return leg game at home. What caught the attention of all during the arrival of Mouloudia Club of Algiers was that each player came down the air bus with a pillow. The Under-17 Women's FIFA World Cup will officially start for the Baby Lionesses on Saturday, October 18, 2025. Before Saturday's game, the girls of Mike Ndumu have been fine-tuning strategies to better start the tournament, with their last training session to take place at the Annex number 2 of the Mohammed Desid Sports Complex this Friday. This last session will help the technical team to dot the I's and cut the T's before their crunch encounter with the Ohanje girls. The baby lionesses, who have been on the Moroccan soil for over 2 weeks, had time to play 2 warm-up.
The report done by Smart Chikan Gabriel ends this first part of the news. Talking Point comes up next. My guest tonight is Cameroonian-born Dr. Elijah ENOAKU. He is a civil society leader and also the director of the Center for African Development. He's live with us from Canada. Hello, good evening. It's a pleasure having you on Talking Point tonight.
Thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to come on Equinoxe to share my thoughts on what's happening in the nation. So thanks for having me.
Dr. Elijah, what was the turnout like for Cameroonians in Canada on election day? How did you find the experience?
Oh, this was a one-in-a-lifetime occasion for Cameroonians in Canada to go out and exercise their civic responsibility. It was filled with anxiety, filled with fear, filled with hope, and so many Cameroonians said they are actually able to vote and expecting that the results of their vote will count. So all over Canada, there's a lot of jubilation. I saw one of the stations where, I don't want to go into the details of the result now, but we can talk about that later. I saw one of the stations where people waited there and had the results and they were jubilating. People took pictures. There was so much anxiety all over the country about what the future holds for Cameroonians. So it was once in a lifetime. You know, somebody like me, I grew up under this regime of President Paul Biya. I know very little of any other president. So it was, to me, an opportunity to say, can something different happen in this country? Can I see a different atmosphere over my lifetime? Or are we going to continue in the same, you know, with the same regime, with everything that's been happening in the country? So there was so much excitement all over the country based on where I was. And I think that seeing over the internet, Cameroonians all across Canada were very, very enthusiastic going to vote for this election. So it was something different from what I've seen over the years. There was a lot of voter apathy over the years where Cameroonians say, it doesn't matter if we vote or not. Many of them did not even care, I mean, in previous elections, to even register. But this election was different. Everybody wanted to do something, regardless of the population where they were. So there were some towns where you will find only a couple of Cameroonians. Some of them tried to see if they could, you know, vote electronically. I don't know if it was permitted, but those who were physically available within the polling station in those towns actually went out massively and voted. So it was once in a lifetime occasion. I mean, for me, at this age where I am, that I've seen Cameroonians say, we have to vote. Others were pushing others to go and vote. So it was very, very enthusiastic, and I believe that Cameroonians have something to look forward to. And let's see how it turns out. So all across Canada, it was a jubilant occasion.
I know you're thousands of miles away from Cameroon. What are your thoughts on the post-election violence reported in some cities in Cameroon? We had the recent case being that took place in Chang. It is a locality found in the west region of Cameroon where a court building was burnt down. Also, a CBDM party house was equally burnt and some other vehicles. What are your thoughts on all what's happening?
Oh, let me put it to you this way. To be candid, nobody advocates for violence. Nobody advocates for burning. Nobody advocates for anything that would jeopardize the peace of this country. But let me say it categorically that I lay all this at the foot of the authorities. I lay the blame at the foot of authorities, because when you see the results of the elections that were coming out, when you see people were present at the time that the results were declared, and people have the results, the procès verbal, as they call in French, a copy of the results, and even videos of the result. And then later on, you see people being told that the results of where they voted are completely different from what they have as the result. It raises anger. It raises suspicion. It raises the iota of fraud. So people are now trying to, protest against the election. And when people protest against fraud, you are going to have anger boil over. You're going to have people that are going to take the law into their own hands, which we do not, which I say again, we do not condone violence, we do not killing, we do not condone burning, but the authorities have to take responsibility, because if the results of the election begin to change from what people know, it is very difficult for you to control the crowd, the anger of the people. There's a lot of expectation in the country. People should know that. The government should know that the people are expecting something different. People have voted and they expect the result of the election to be certified as they saw it. When that is not the case, then you're going to see that people are going to go to the street. And when people go to the streets, you are going to have people who are going to take the law out of into their own hands. So it is unfortunate that what happened in Cheng, but we are calling on the government and the authorities that be to make sure that the voice of the people are respected. And if this is done, you're not going to find all these happening, whether in Chang or in Bamenda or in Limba, whatever it is, because people will jubilate that what they voted for is what they see. So it is unfortunate what's happening in Chang, but I want to say here that I call on the authorities, Electoral, I call on those who are doing elections, I call on the divisional officers, I call on the DO, I call on the Constitutional Council to make sure that the voice of the people is respected, so that we have peace and tranquility in Cameroon.
It's necessary that all the stakeholders respect the voice of the people. But now, do you think the government respects the people's will, or will history repeat itself?
Let me put it to you this way. The government of Cameroon should know that Cameroon is on its knees right now. If you look at the economic data of Cameroon, Cameroon is wallowing in poverty. More than 60% of Cameroonians live below the poverty line. The educational sector in Cameroon is in downturn. The economy of Cameroon is in downturn. If you look at the debt-to-service ratio in Cameroon, Cameroon is borrowing money to service debt. So if the Cameroonian government wants to go down the line, they should ask themselves the question, is that the posterity that they want to leave behind? Is that what they want to leave behind for the people of Cameroon to remember them for? Because if they tamper with the elections, I am telling you, the aspirations of Cameroon is very high right now. Tension is very high. Are you going to inflame the tension? Are you going to let the country go down in flame because of your aspiration, because of your personal ego? Are you going to respect the voice of the people? Because Cameroon that I have right now, we have the Electoral. People are saying, which is rightly so, that Electoral are members of government that were called upon to exercise this duty. We know that in every country, the government appoints those who are supposed to supervise election. But those people are supposed to be fair. Fair, I repeat again. Even if you are a member of the governing party and you have been called upon to exercise a civic duty of supervising and announcing election, the expectation is that you are fair. Number two, count yourself lucky that you are serving a country and you carry out your responsibility of announcing the results as it came out from the poll. We saw in Chad one of those categorical, I would say, a Cameroonian of value who stood her ground and said she was not going to falsify the result of election. We expect some people in the election, even if you're elected by, appointed by the government, to stand your ground and say, you are not going to change the results. Because what we see in Cameroon right now, if the government wants Cameroon to go in flame, which we pray it shouldn't happen, they will be held responsible for what happens in Cameroon after that. So I'm hoping that they will respect the call and the votes of the people. That's what we are hoping for.
Dr. Elijah ENOAKU, civil society leader and director of the Center for African Development. Thank you so much for your time. That's what put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention. Stay in the company of interesting programs on Equinoxe Television and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye for now.